The latest story doing the rounds claims that Meghan is past playing nice with Camilla, that she once tried, made an effort, extended goodwill, and now, apparently, she's decided she's done pretending. It's framed as revelation, as if some unnamed insider has cracked open Meghan's private diary and discovered a note that reads, "No more kissing up to Camilla," and that alone should immediately set off alarm bells. Because anyone who has followed the royal press for more than 5 minutes knows that these so-called insiders are never neutral. They are not neutral observers. They are not independent sources. They are not unbiased friends confiding in journalists out of concern for the truth. They are mouthpieces. They are courtiers, aides, former aides, or people with something to gain feeding lines to the press while pretending to be detached from palace politics. That's the trick. Make it look organic. Make it look like gossip bubbling up naturally. Make it look like the royals themselves are above it all, while the briefing happens quietly in the background. The palace machine doesn't shout, it whispers. So, when you see a story like this, Meghan versus Camilla, the real question is not, is it true? The real question is, who wants us to believe it, and why now? Timing is everything in royal coverage, and this timing is not subtle. For months now, the most intense smear campaign against Harry and Meghan has revolved around the Waleses. William is allegedly furious. Kate is allegedly upset, though no one can ever quite articulate why. There are constant stories about William wanting to strip Archie and Lilibet of their titles, about William drawing hard lines, about William being the responsible adult in the room. And yet, something interesting has been happening. The more the press tries to paint William and Kate as the steady hands of the monarchy, the more people are starting to recoil. Not everyone, obviously, but enough to matter. Half the country is thoroughly turned off by the pettiness, by the coldness, by the relentless leaking, by the sense that punching down at Harry and Meghan has become a personality trait rather than a strategy. And crucially, Harry's lawsuit has dragged the Daily Mail into court and forced uncomfortable truths into daylight. Dirty tricks, hacking, surveillance. Practices the tabloids swore they'd left behind, exposed, documented, and entered into legal record. That is not a good look for anyone involved. So when things start to feel dangerous, when scrutiny starts to drift a little too close to Kensington Palace, what do? You move the spotlight. Suddenly, the story is no longer about William's anger or Kate's supposed distress or the ethics of briefing against your own brother. Suddenly, the story is Meghan versus Camilla. And just like that, the narrative shifts. Kensington Palace gets breathing room. The Waleses get to look innocent. The focus moves away from their camp and lands squarely on Buckingham Palace instead. It's a neat little diversion. Camilla is cast as the villain, or at least the other half of a supposed feud, and the Waleses step out of the line of fire. No one has to ask uncomfortable questions about who's been leaking what, or why the tone of coverage has been so vicious. The tabloids benefit too. They get fresh drama to sell papers without having to acknowledge that they've been caught out in court. They don't have to explain hacking or surveillance or accountability. They just pivot. And oddly enough, even Buckingham Palace benefits in a twisted way. Camilla's reputation has always been flexible. She's been a punching bag for decades, a lightning rod, a convenient scapegoat. A few rounds of Meghan versus Camilla headlines don't damage the monarchy as a whole. They don't destabilize the institution. They simply reinforce a narrative the press loves to push, that the Sussexes are always at war with someone. It doesn't matter who that someone is. Yesterday it was Kate. Before that it was William. Before that it was the palace staff. Before that it was Hollywood. Remember the completely fabricated story about Meghan having beef with Gwyneth Paltrow? That one vanished as quickly as it appeared because it served its purpose and then moved on. This is not about Camilla. It's about pattern. The royal press operates like a shell game. The P keeps moving. The audience is encouraged to focus on the drama, not the mechanics. And the mechanics are ugly. Because here's the thing, the palace never seems willing to consider the simplest option. Stop. Stop planting stories. Stop pretending sources are neutral. Stop fueling a petty campaign of vitriol against people who left. Harry and Meghan are not briefing. That's not speculation, that's observable reality. When they speak, they do it openly. On record, in documentaries, in court filings, in signed statements. They don't need anonymous friends whispering on their behalf. Every single anonymous story about Meghan's supposed feelings, strategies or grudges is coming from the other side. And palace-savvy readers know this. Royal gossip is rarely organic. It is manufactured, it is targeted, and it is timed. This particular story tells us nothing about Meghan. It tells us everything about the palace machine. Because think about what the story is really asking you to believe. That Meghan, who has been physically absent from royal life for years, is expending emotional energy on whether or not she is playing nice with Camilla. That Meghan, who lives thousands of miles away, is actively engaged in some imaginary chess match with the Queen Consort. That Meghan, who has consistently refused to leak or clap back anonymously, is suddenly sending messages through tabloids. It doesn't pass the smell test. What does make sense is this: someone needed a distraction, and Meghan remains the most reliable lightning rod the palace has. She absorbs the heat. Always has. And the illusion of clean hands is maintained barely because the royals insist they don't comment. They don't respond. They're above the fray. But the fingerprints are everywhere. Every source close to the palace. Every royal insider. Every friend of the family. It's the same playbook, over and over again. Brief against one another. Deny involvement. Pretend neutrality. Let the press do the dirty work. Pass the parcel. And when the parcel explodes, step back and look shocked. So while the public is invited to gasp at this supposed Meghan-Camilla feud, the real story is strategy. Who planted it? Who profits from it? Who gets to walk away looking spotless? Because it's not accidental that this story surfaces just as the Waleses are facing growing criticism. It's not accidental that it coincides with legal pressure on the tabloids. And it's not accidental that Meghan's name is once again being used to carry the weight of palace dysfunction. The Sussexes are no longer useful as silent relatives, so they're useful as villains. And until that changes, these stories will keep coming recycled, repackaged, and re-aimed, not because Meghan is past playing nice, but because the palace is past taking responsibility. The machine doesn't know how to stop. It only knows how to redirect.